There is a sacred cost to the anointing, one that is not seen by the crowds, one that is not understood by the natural mind, and one that is often rejected by those who desire only the power, but not the process. And the anointing is not cheap. It has never been cheap, and it will never be cheap. And you cannot walk into the fullness of God's power while holding on to the fullness of yourself. You cannot be filled with His Spirit while still clinging tightly to your own will, your own desires, your own control. There comes a moment holy, weighty, and deeply personal when God looks into your heart and asks one question: will you let me have everything, and not part of your life? Not the convenient parts, not the polished parts you show others, but everything. And then this is where many turn back. And because the price of the anointing is surrender. Real surrender. Not emotional surrender that fades with time, but a deep, daily yielding of the soul. And it is the laying down of pride. And it is the death of self-will. And it is the breaking of the inner man until there is nothing left but a vessel that says, not my will, but yours be done. And oh, how costly that is. And there will be moments when God calls you to step away from what is comfortable, from what is familiar, from what others applaud. There will be seasons where He isolates you, not to punish you, but to purify you. And because God does not anoint noise, He anoints brokenness, and He does not anoint performance. He anoints surrender, and He does not anoint self-exaltation. He anoints humility. And the truth is this: many desire the power, but few are willing to pay the price of brokenness, and few are willing to stay in the secret place when no one is watching, and few are willing to weep in prayer when others are sleeping, and few are willing to let God deal with the hidden areas of the heart, the areas no one else can see, but God sees clearly. But it is in that hidden place where the anointing is born. And it is in that place of surrender where God begins to shape you, mold you, and refine you until your life becomes a reflection of His glory. And you see, the anointing is not something you grab, it is something you receive. And it is only received by those who are willing to let go, and let go of pride, and let go of control, and let go of self, and then say, Lord, whatever it costs, I want you more than I want anything else. And because when you reach that place, when your hunger for God becomes greater than your fear of loss, something powerful begins to happen, and He begins to trust you, and He begins to flow through you. And His presence becomes not just something you experience, but something you carry. But never forget this: every level of anointing carries a deeper level of surrender. And if you want more of Him, you must give Him more of you. And if you want to walk in His power, you must walk in His will. And if you want to carry His presence, you must first learn how to lay your life down at His feet. And so the question remains, and are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to be broken? And are you willing to be hidden? And are you willing to be shaped in silence, refined in fire, and surrendered in full? And because the anointing is still available, but it will only rest upon those who are willing to pay the price. The anointing of God is not given to those who merely desire it. It is given to those who are willing to lay down everything in exchange for it. Total surrender of self and will is not a one-time decision, but a continuous posture of the heart, a daily yielding that says, not my way, not my plans, not my desires, but yours alone. This is where many struggle, because the human nature resists surrender. The flesh wants control, recognition, and comfort, yet the Spirit of God calls for the opposite: submission, humility, and obedience. And when a person begins to truly surrender, something begins to shift on the inside. The grip of personal ambition starts to loosen, and the voice of God becomes clearer. Surrender is not weakness. It is the strongest position a believer can take. It is the place where human limitation meets divine possibility. When self is on the throne, God is limited in what He can do through a life, but when self is removed and God is enthroned, there is no limit to what He can accomplish through that same life. And total surrender means giving God access to every area: thoughts, decisions, desires, relationships, and future plans. It means allowing Him to interrupt your schedule, redirect your path, and refine your motives. There is a refining process in surrender that often feels uncomfortable, because God begins to deal with hidden areas that were once ignored. He begins to remove pride, expose dependence on self, and break down anything that competes with His authority in your life. This is not punishment. It is preparation. And in the process of surrender, there will be moments of testing where God asks you to release things that feel important, things that you have grown attached to, or plans you believed were right. These moments reveal whether surrender is truly genuine or just a concept. True surrender does not argue with God, it yields, even when it does not fully understand. It trusts that His wisdom is higher and His plans are greater than anything the human mind can conceive. And the life that is fully surrendered becomes a vessel that God can trust. It is no longer about self-glory, personal recognition, or human applause. Instead, it becomes about reflecting His presence and carrying His heart. When self is surrendered, God's Spirit flows freely, unhindered by resistance. This is where the anointing begins to manifest in a deeper way, not because of effort, but because of alignment with His will. And surrender also brings a deep sense of peace, because when you are no longer trying to control everything, you rest in the hands of the One who controls all things. The burden of self-reliance is lifted, and the soul begins to experience a divine rest that cannot be found anywhere else. This is the mystery of surrender. It may feel like loss, but in reality it is the pathway to spiritual gain. The hidden place with God is not a place of visibility, recognition, or applause, yet it is the most powerful and essential place a believer can ever enter. It is in this unseen space, away from the eyes of people, that true transformation begins and the foundation of spiritual authority is established. Many desire to be used by God in public, to be seen, to be heard, to be recognized, but few are willing to be formed in the quietness of the secret place where no one is watching except God alone. And in the hidden place, there is no stage, no spotlight, and no audience to impress. There is only you and God. This is where honesty is demanded, where masks fall away, and where the heart is exposed before the One who sees all things. It is in this sacred space that God begins to shape the inner man, to deal with motives, intentions, and attitudes that cannot be seen by others, but are clearly seen by Him. The hidden place is not about doing more. It is about becoming more aligned with Him. And this place requires discipline and consistency, because it is easy to neglect what is unseen. It is easy to pray when others are watching, to read the Word when it is convenient, or to seek God when emotions are high. But the hidden place calls for something deeper, a commitment to seek Him when there is no motivation, to pray when no one encourages you, and to remain faithful when there is no immediate reward. It is in these moments that character is built and spiritual strength is formed, and God often hides those He intends to use. This hiding is not rejection, but preparation. Before a life is revealed in power, it is first refined in obscurity. The hidden place becomes a training ground where God teaches dependence on Him alone. It strips away self-sufficiency and creates a deep awareness that apart from Him, nothing can truly be accomplished. This realization is not discouraging. It is empowering, because it shifts reliance from human ability to divine strength. And in the hidden place, God begins to speak in ways that are often quiet and subtle, yet deeply powerful. It is here that His voice becomes familiar, where discernment is sharpened, and where sensitivity to His Spirit increases. The distractions of the world fade, and the soul becomes tuned to His presence. This is where intimacy is cultivated, not through performance, but through presence. And there is a purity that develops in those who dwell in the hidden place. Their motives are refined, their desires are realigned, and their hearts are anchored in something greater than personal gain. They begin to seek God for who He is, not just for what He can do. This shift is significant because it marks the transition from a shallow pursuit to a deep relationship. Brokenness and humility are not weaknesses in the eyes of God. They are the very qualities that attract his presence and release his power. In a world that celebrates strength, independence, and self-confidence, God looks for something entirely different, a heart that is tender, yielded, and aware of its own need for him. True spiritual authority is never built on pride or self-exaltation. It is built on a foundation of humility and brokenness that allows God to work freely through a life. And brokenness is the place where self is no longer defended, where the walls of pride begin to fall, and where the heart becomes soft in the hands of God. It is not a state of destruction, but a state of surrender where God gently breaks what needs to be broken in order to build something greater. Many resist this process because it is uncomfortable. It involves being stretched, corrected, and sometimes humbled in ways that challenge personal strength and understanding. Yet, in the midst of this process, God is shaping a vessel that can carry his glory without being overwhelmed by it. And humility is the posture that allows brokenness to be effective. It is the willingness to admit that you do not have all the answers, that your strength is limited, and that you are fully dependent on God. A humble heart does not compete for recognition, it seeks to serve. It does not strive for superiority, it embraces submission. In humility, there is no need to prove oneself because identity is already secure in God. This freedom removes the pressure to perform and opens the door for genuine transformation. And when brokenness and humility come together, something powerful is released. The heart becomes receptive, the spirit becomes sensitive, and the life becomes a vessel that God can trust. He does not place his anointing on a proud or hardened heart, because such a heart resists his leading and limits his flow. But when a heart is broken and humble, it becomes pliable in his hands, ready to be shaped, guided, and used according to his purpose. And there is a deep surrender that comes with brokenness. It is a willingness to let go of control, to release personal agendas, and to trust God even when the path is not fully clear. This kind of surrender is not passive, it is active and intentional. It is choosing to remain soft in a world that encourages hardness, choosing to stay dependent in a culture that values independence, and choosing to trust God even when the process feels uncertain. And God honors those who walk in humility. He draws near to the brokenhearted and lifts up those who are low in their own eyes. In this place of humility, the human ego fades, and the presence of God becomes more evident. It is here that lives are transformed, not by human effort, but by divine grace flowing through a yielded vessel. God anoints those who are willing to be refined and tested, because the anointing is not merely a gift to be received, but a life to be proven. Refinement is not comfortable, and testing is not easy. Yet both are necessary in shaping a vessel that can carry the weight of God's presence. Without refinement, there is instability. Without testing, there is no evidence of endurance. And without both, the anointing cannot rest in its fullness upon a life that has not been prepared to handle it. And refinement often comes through situations that challenge your patience, stretch your faith, and expose areas within you that need to be surrendered. It is in these moments that God begins to remove impurities, just as fire purifies gold. The process may feel intense, even overwhelming at times, but it is purposeful. God is not trying to harm you, He is preparing you. He is shaping your character so that it aligns with His nature, ensuring that when His power flows through you, it does not become misused or misdirected. And testing reveals what is truly in the heart. It exposes whether your faith is genuine or dependent on circumstances. It shows whether your trust in God is rooted in His character or in your own understanding of outcomes. In times of testing, many are tempted to give up, to question God's plan, or to retreat back into comfort. But those who endure begin to develop a deeper level of trust, a trust that does not depend on visible results, but rests in the faithfulness of God. And God uses testing to build endurance and spiritual maturity. A life that has never been tested cannot be trusted with greater responsibility. But a life that has been refined through trials and proven faithful becomes a vessel that God can confidently use. There is a quiet strength that develops through these seasons, a strength that is not visible on the outside, but is deeply rooted within. And refinement also requires submission. It requires the willingness to let God shape your responses, correct your attitudes, and guide your decisions. There are times when He allows certain pressures or challenges not to weaken you, but to reveal how you respond under pressure. These moments become opportunities for growth, for learning to respond with grace, patience, and obedience instead of resistance or frustration. And the refining process strips away anything that does not align with God's purpose. It removes pride, self-reliance, and anything that could hinder the flow of His Spirit. What remains after refinement is a vessel that is pure, surrendered, and ready to be used for His glory. The testing ensures that this vessel is not only pure but also stable, able to stand firm in both calm and difficult seasons. The cost of the anointing is never small, and it is never convenient. It demands sacrifice, discipline, and obedience, three pillars that shape a life that God can trust. Sacrifice is the willingness to let go of what is valuable in order to gain what is eternal. It is choosing God above comfort, above personal desires, and above the approval of others. Many speak about wanting more of God, yet few are willing to release what competes for His place in their lives. Sacrifice asks a simple but deeply challenging question. What are you willing to give up to walk in His presence more fully and discipline? Is the daily commitment to seek God consistently, even when emotions are low and circumstances are not ideal. It is in the quiet, unseen moments that discipline is formed, where no one is watching and no one is applauding. Prayer, fasting, and time in the Word are not occasional acts for the one who desires the anointing. They become a lifestyle. Discipline keeps the heart aligned and the spirit sensitive. Without it, even a sincere desire can fade over time, but with it, a steady foundation is built that supports growth, and spiritual depth and obedience is the willingness to follow God's instructions without delay or resistance. It is saying yes when it would be easier to say no, and moving forward even when the path is not fully clear. Obedience requires trust, because it often leads into unfamiliar territory where comfort is removed and dependence on God becomes essential. Yet, it is in obedience that breakthroughs occur, doors open, and divine direction becomes evident. God honors those who do not just hear His voice, but respond to it with action, and the cost of the anointing is also seen in the surrender of personal plans. There are moments when God will redirect your path, asking you to let go of what you thought was your future, in order to step into what He has prepared. This can be difficult because it challenges expectations and requires letting go of control. But God's plans are always greater, always more refined, and always more purposeful than anything we could design on our own, and there is also a hidden cost in consistency. Many begin with passion, but only those who remain consistent experience the deeper dimensions of God's presence. Consistency means showing up daily, remaining faithful in the small things, and continuing even when progress seems slow. It is in this steady, faithful pursuit that the anointing deepens and grows stronger within a life. And the anointing rests upon those who are willing to live a life of cost, a life where sacrifice is embraced, discipline is maintained, and obedience is prioritized over personal preference. Greater anointing is not found in greater effort, but in deeper surrender and intimacy with God. The pursuit of power alone can lead to emptiness, but the pursuit of His presence leads to transformation. God does not measure a life by outward success, but by the depth of relationship that exists between the heart and Him. Intimacy is not built in public moments, it is formed in private devotion, in quiet moments where the soul reaches out for God without distraction or performance. And deeper surrender is the pathway to deeper intimacy. It is the continual letting go of control, the daily yielding of desires, and the consistent choice to align with God's will above personal understanding. As surrender increases, resistance decreases, and the flow of God's presence becomes more evident. Surrender creates space for God to move freely, without hindrance, without limitation, and without competing voices within the heart. And intimacy with God requires time, attention, and intentionality. It is cultivated through prayer, meditation on His Word, and moments of stillness where the heart listens as much as it speaks. In these moments, the noise of the world fades, and the voice of God becomes clearer. Intimacy is not rushed. It develops over time as trust deepens and the heart becomes familiar with His presence. The more time spent in His presence, the more sensitive the spirit becomes to His leading. And as intimacy deepens, transformation begins to take place from within. The desires of the heart begin to shift, priorities begin to change, and the focus moves from self to God. This transformation is not forced. It is a natural result of being close to Him. When you are close to someone, you begin to reflect them, and in the same way, when you draw close to God, your life begins to reflect His nature. And greater anointing is a byproduct of this closeness. It is not something that can be earned through striving, but something that flows from a life that is aligned with God's heart. The anointing increases as intimacy deepens, because God entrusts more of His presence to those who are faithful in seeking Him. It is in this place of closeness that spiritual authority is strengthened and the ability to discern His voice becomes sharper. And there is a weight that comes with greater anointing, and that weight can only be carried by those who have developed intimacy with God. Without intimacy, the weight becomes overwhelming, but with intimacy, it becomes a place of strength and stability. The deeper you go with God, the more you become anchored in Him, unshaken by circumstances and grounded in His truth. And greater anointing is not about visibility, it is about depth. It is not about recognition, it is about relationship. And it is not about how much you do for God, but how close you walk with Him.